This is part 2 where I'll show you how to animate general banners, surrender flags and troop standards. And if you want to be able to use this effect, please do keep watching as I explore and use this slightly differently. Once in Davinci Resolve, place a background onto your timeline and drop an adjustment clip above it. Right click and go into its fusion page. Drag and drop your frame onto the output line and adjust the size using the merge node. We want to animate the banner popping up from nothing, for it to rotate to a certain position before bouncing around and gradually coming to a stop. This will involve manually keyframing, but you only have to do it once. The first step is to add a transform node to your media and move the pivot to the base of the frame. It's just this green X in the middle, so align it to sit at the bottom point. This will let us rotate around that point so it looks more natural. Secondly, move your play slider a couple of frames forwards. Keyframe the angle and rotate the value 180 degrees, or until the banner is pointing down. Move the play slider forwards by 15 frames and keyframe the angle again, this time at -13 degrees. Move 5 frames forwards and keyframe at 9 degrees. Another 5 frames and keyframe at -4. 5 more frames and keyframe at 1.7. Then 6 frames later, change this to -1 degrees, 7 more frames to 0.5 degrees, and finally 8 frames after that, keyframe at an angle of 0. Your angle values should look like this in the spline section. Then all we have to do is select each keyframe we made and press smooth at the bottom. This gives us the effect we're looking for, but I think the initial rotation bounces a bit abruptly, so I'm going to extend the curve handles to make it even smoother. Once you're happy, add your other images to the left of your frame and copy the transform node to each one. You'll probably see these new images rotate around a different pivot, so we need to change that in the transform node. Then adjust the final size and position in the merge node until they both move in sync. Repeat this with the name card and the shadow, but add an extra transform node to the shadow to adjust the angle. Yeah, that's starting to look more 3D. There are still a few things to do to finish this up. We need to blur the shadow to make it less harsh, add a mask to make this appear out of nowhere, as well as the ripple effects for the image. Starting with the shadow element, press Shift spacebar and type in Gaussian blur. Add this to the shadows node tree by pressing Shift and hovering over it. You can also reduce the blend in its merge node. Then onto the mask effect. Grab a polygon and attach it to the merge node. Draw a shape with a straight line at the top, starting at the pivot point. Make sure to press invert and check that it covers the whole image. Then just copy and paste this mask, attaching it to your other components. Brilliant. Lastly, press Shift spacebar and search for waviness. Connect it to your nodes and change the setting from vertical to horizontal. Reduce its properties as well. If you have learned something so far, please comment down below or tell me what video you're going to use this for. And while you're doing that, let me introduce the sponsor of today's video, AI Arty. It's the best tool for removing backgrounds from your images. As you've probably found, online tools leave jaggy edges and low resolution. With just one click and the power of AI, you can cut out any icon with no loss of quality. You can also blur the surroundings, swap them for a green screen and export high quality PNGs. It's an easy way to raise your video quality, so check the link in the description. Right, there's just one more thing I need to show you to give even more depth to your flag, and that is to add moving shadows. You can do this by placing a glow node between your banner image and the waviness node. Turn its blend up and the color sliders down. Then connect it to a rectangle and adjust this to fit your banner. We want it to move across our photo, so keyframe its center and angle on the left hand side, move your playhead forwards, and drag the rectangle to the right. Keyframe the values again. If you want multiple lines moving across here, all you have to do is search for duplicate, and add this to our node tree. This will create a copy of the rectangle. Adjust its settings until they are all equally spaced. That looks better, but at the moment they are moving across the screen once and disappearing. We want them to move across continuously, and to do that we're going to set up a loop. Click on the rectangle node and highlight all of the keyframes. Then select this icon at the bottom. These dotted lines mean it's worked. and show the animation will now run forever. You can also increase the rectangle soft edge and reduce its level. If you'd prefer a shine effect instead of a shadow, just increase the color scale in the glow node. I know that was a lot of changes, and if you're still with me, congratulations. You should now be able to make your own general banners. But what about the surrender flags and troop standards? Well, you'll be happy to know they use the same method I just ran through. Import your images, resize them, and reuse the transform node you made earlier. Move the pivot to the bottom of the pole, adding the same effects I just ran through. There is one other thing we can do to the troop standard, and that is to make it sway in the wind. Do this by adding a second transform node to the hanging flag and moving the pivot to the top. Keyframe the angle to change over around 70 frames and set this as a loop. So we're finally done with animating, and we want to be able to use this in our videos. Now remember I said I export this slightly differently. You could try and move each photo manually for every scene, but that's a lot of work and there is an easier way. The way I do this is by exporting it with a transparent background, which means I can just drag and drop it onto any scene, the animation still runs, and I can add a single transform node to move the whole thing. As part of this method, click on the photo's media in Fusion and tick the loop box. Then remove the media in node and replace it with a background. Turn its alpha down to 0, and we can already see it looks like it will be transparent. Back in the edit page, say I know that I want my banner to show up for a 2-minute scene. I'm going to extend my adjustment clip for that length and remove anything below it. Next, go to the export page and change the codec to GoPro Cineform. Swap the type to RGB 16-bit and tick Export Alpha. Once you've rendered it, you'll get a file with no preview like this, so make sure to name it correctly. Now just drag and drop this file onto your timeline and you'll see the animation works perfectly. That looks pretty neat if you ask me. For even more control, you can import the clip to Fusion and use a transform node to move it around. If you want more help, my Discord is linked below, and if you'd like to support me making more videos, you can become a channel member. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.